Right, how you doing? Yeah, thank you all for coming. How many of you are first timers here? I know you're a first timer for sure. A couple. Okay, cool. So for those of you who are here for the first time, you are more than welcome. My name's Tony. This is CDR, the Night of Ideas and Tracks in the Making. It's a very simple concept, but actually a beautiful one because we get to be together, people who are passionate about music, passionate about music production, and want to meet like-minded people and get to hear insights from producers that we know and love. So without further ado, give it up for Kieran, aka K15. Absolute, I'm humbled to be in your presence. That's for yours, yeah. 2.
Hi everyone, you're right. Safe, thanks for having me, man. Proper appreciate it, for real. Safe, man.
No, thank you. And it's particularly nice because, I've known you for a while now, almost 10 years. So I wanted to kind of kick off with, when I first met you was, at Plastic People sessions. Those days were obviously amazing. These days are amazing too, but those days are a particular moment in time. But I was always drawn by, your music in terms of how it was, really unique. So it was always special seeing a kind of 3-syllable track name with 3 syllables, start with a K, and I knew it was kind of going to be something special. So I wanted to, for those of us who weren't at Plastic People at that time, or in those early days of CDR, what was it like for you as a new producer, kind of bringing tracks to CDR, and kind of that whole experience of sharing your music in public and kind of navigating, the whole world of the music industry at that time?
Yeah, truth be told, I would bring my songs, but a lot of the times I didn't stay to hear them. So I'd burn the CD, drop it off, stay, and then I'd move further back, and eventually just go. It's quite I did stay a few times, and it's quite an exposing place. Like it's something that you worked on at home, you play it out, and you haven't really got anywhere to hide because it just sounds so big and so loud. But when I did stay, I was very thankful that I did. It was like, okay, I can change this, I can change that. And I was there maybe even the first couple of CDRs, and I thought it was wicked because there was loads of people that I knew who made music, and other than playing it in your car or playing it to yourself, where would you go to hear it? So it's nice to hear it in an environment that hopefully some of your music would, translate well. So yeah, it was a proper, really positive experience when I eventually went to it.
So apart from dusting out most of the time, what were the highlights? Was there any particular highlights that you can remember from those days?
Yeah, but it was nothing to do with my music. It was everybody else's music. So going to those nights, I met people like Mr. Beatnik. I heard early Floating Point songs. There's loads of different people who have gone on to have careers in music, done massive things in music, but everybody started from the same place. Everybody was listening to the same radio shows, and then you see them there, and then when you go to buy records, be like, he was a whatever. So you know what I mean? You see people in real life. So it was good to put faces to names or faces to avatars, but also good to know that you're not by yourself. There are other people who care as much about bit rate and snares and aux cables as much as you do. So yeah, it's nice to feel part of something.
Absolutely. Amen to the aux cable, for sure. So in that time, you've kind of grown and evolved as an artist, as a producer, as someone with different guises. Looking back, how was your career? Well, from a music production point of view, how have you grown and evolved?
I think probably trying more new things and listening really widely. Other than that, it's not much has changed. I don't consider myself as someone who's got a career in music. I just happen to make music. But I think it's still pretty much the same. Now I get to make music with different people that I've looked up to for years, and might sit in the same room as them, might have conversations with them. So yeah, not much has changed, but just try to make different things and not get stuck in one way of doing things, I think is what's kind of worked over time.
Okay. And in terms of your technical setup, how has that evolved? I know that's changed.
Not much, man. Not much. So
At least software updates.
reluctantly, I hate that, man. Now they try and get you to pay money. It's nuts. But yeah, never really. What was I starting using? I was using Reason. So when I was at college, a friend of mine, Ian, big up IS Productions, he was sick. He used to build computers, and he used to play me his music, and he was heavily into Timbaland, Aaliyah. And so when he played me what he had made, it sounded on par for what they had made. And I was completely blown away by that. So he said, look, come to my house and I'll show you what I use. So as well as having a computer, he had loads of outboard gear, loads of keyboards. And I was like, sick. Okay, he said, oh, but I use Reason. And this was Reason 2. So he built me a computer and put Reason 2 on there for me. He said, take it away, do what you're doing, it's fine. Paid him, got home. And then week after week, I'd just badger him at college. Like, yeah, I did this, but how'd you do that? Yeah, I've done this, but how'd you do that? Yeah, I made this, but how'd you do that? And as the months went on, he was like a real person of encouragement to say, keep going. You're the only person that comes back and uses it and tries things and wants to learn more. You know what I mean? So having him as a person there was really good because I learned Reason. I just kind of stuck with Reason 2 for ages and then went to different kind of iterations of that. I've tried other things in the past and they're all good, but because I know how to use Reason or how to kind of craft what I need to in Reason, it's kind of just been the default way that I do it. Throughout the years as well, people like High Tech, Madlib, JD, I wanted to make music like them, which I tried to do in Reason, and it sounded pants. So when I'm making strings and horns, it sounds like strings and horns made from a computer. I didn't realize they were sampling records of what they were doing. So I got really into reading credits, looking at CDs, and then realizing what made their music great was partly the machines they were using, but their source material, the records. So through hip hop, that's just been a complete vehicle for me to learn about so much other music. And I don't think hip hop gets enough credit for being that, a gateway to a wide variation of music. So I went buying lots of records, more CDs, and then eventually I saved some money, got a used MPC 2000 XL, and I had that up until 2020, and then I sold it, got a different machine. So yeah, pretty much Reason, MPC, other bits and bobs along the way that you buy, use, sell, use, buy, whatever. But yeah, Reason's pretty much been at the heart of everything, I guess.
So, and I guess you clock Reason to the MPC. Is that how you work them side by side, or you do stuff
sometimes
exclusively on the MPC?
Sometimes I don't want to look at no screens, and so I'll just use the MPC, try and find ways to do what I want in there, which I think I can only do here. Sometimes yay, sometimes nay, but you try. And then, yeah, sometimes I just use the MPC, sometimes I use Reason, sometimes I use them together, sometimes I don't, sometimes I sample what I've made in here into the MPC and make something completely different. It depends, but I like having the option of, if I've looked at a screen all day at work, I don't have to come home and look at a screen again. You know what I mean? And I can just do it, and it doesn't have to be anything. It's just pleasure, it's fun, and that's, yeah, like that was always something I wanted to do, to have a machine to work from in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got rid of the MPC for what?
What did I get rid of it for? Good question. I think I was looking, other people probably have this, where you look and you're online and people are making use of other bits of equipment. You think, I want that. So I thought, yeah, the MPC is a bit slow, a bit outdated. I can sell it, get something else. And I traded it in, sold it, bought an MPC 1000, much smaller. I thought this was going to be great, and I hated it. Like, the pads were too small, everything was nuts. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Like, genuinely, I was in turmoil, looking like, I need to buy my old one back. Can I get a used one, whatever? But these things happen for a reason. And it's only now I've come to really appreciate that it's a sick machine. And I wanted it to do what a previous machine did, which is always a fade-in. So I had to learn how to use it, learn how to be grateful for the fact that I've got it, and be like, cool, this is what you've got. What can you do with it? You know what I mean? So now I'm at a point where I enjoy it a lot more because I accept it for what it is rather than what it isn't. So yeah.
Cool. So before we delve into the project, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Kouros project. So yeah, so how did it come about? I mean, first of all, sorry?
What do you mean?
What I mean is that, there's K15 for a while, and then suddenly this project comes on. K15 is pretty much you, right? Yeah, and then there's this need to work with other people and have a project that's a little bit more about other people.
Yeah, so K15 is me, yeah. Chorus Close is also me. There are no other people. So a big person that I rate in music is Madlib, and he had loads of different aliases. Yesterday's New Quintet, sorry, being one of them. Those individual players, whenever made their own albums, still him. Chorus Close was just my version of that, which I did for myself, and then it's kind of, I enjoyed making that kind of music more. I enjoyed thinking in that way more. So while there are this person on percussion, this person who plays whatever, 99.9% of the time it's just me.
Yeah. So it's about identities at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So why did you feel the need to do that? Why did you feel the need to kind of have these different personalities for this project? Was that just from a creative point of view, so you could be from the lens of a drummer or from the lens of a bass player, or?
No, I don't think it was even that. Like, I grew up listening to garage house, a lot of jungle, and that was usual for everyone to have multiple aliases. So if DJ SS puts out a record this week, and then someone on Formation puts out a record the next week, in your head you think it's two different people, but it's the same person. He had like 9, 10, 11 aliases. So it wasn't unusual for me to see someone make music, whether it's similar music or different music, under a different alias. And I was just like, yeah, cool. It allows me to make something else and just live a different life through music.
Yeah. But is there a different aesthetic for the different characters, in your opinion?
From K15
Yeah.
and... Yeah, I think there is. I don't know how best to articulate it, but I think there is. Yeah.
And with that said, when you switch on the MPC or switch on Reason, is there a kind of K15 day, or is there another person that
Every day is
Is
Kieran Day.
there a dice that what?
Every day is Kieran Day. You make what you make, and then then you kind of think, all right, where does this fit? And some songs, some music fits better together, and it works better for that, if that makes sense. But yeah, there's never like an agenda. I want to do this today and that tomorrow. It's just Kieran Day. You turn it on, and whatever happens, happens, I guess.
Cool. And that's useful to know, because I think there are producers out there who are very strategic about making music. Even though they're the same person, they can write music in a particular way for a particular kind of alias, right? So yeah, it's just good to know. So this album came out earlier this year. So just talk us through the kind of, I guess the compositional process.
So the album was called Pressure. Pressure is a very real thing that I feel at different points in life. And I think the last few years, lots of people have felt it in different ways. Lots of institutions have felt it. So yeah, it was just about what pressure is to me, I guess. So in terms of writing it, the song that we'll play on here was made ages ago, like really, really a long time ago.
What's ages? A year, 2 years?
Nah. Longer than that. Okay. Like way longer than that. I live in South London now. This is when I lived in North London, and I haven't lived in North London for like 6 years or whatever. So it was made a while ago. Loads of stuff is in that way. You make it, you might not enjoy it at the time or whatever, but then you come back to it and there's an idea that you like. So I'd made some music and I was like, how can I put this together? How does it work? And when I am making music and I think, right, it's going to be an EP, it's going to be an album, I bounce all the songs out and I track them up as one long take. So I'll end up with like a 35-minute MP3 file on my phone or on my iPod, and I'll listen to it as one thing. So I tend to, some people see albums in length. I tend to see them in idea, in concept, in theme. So listening is one thing, allows me to kind of hear what's in there, what's similar, what works. And so yeah, just had some stuff that kind of fit. And I was like, all right, cool. And then as I was thinking about pressure, how it affects me, it was just about, okay, how to tie it in, how to give songs names that worked, how to kind of create bits of like tension and suspense in other ways. So yeah, it's kind of like a working process, I guess.
Yeah. So with that said, I guess what would you typically start with when it comes to an instrument? Do you have a particular frame, process that you work from, or does it depend on how you feel? Or
it usually comes from piano. So I'll try to play some notes, chords, figure things that fit. Sometimes they do, they don't. might play them, might bounce them to audio, might sample them, and then do little things on top. So no set way to start anything. But similar to working in the MPC, I come from listening to a lot of hip hop. I tend to work this in a loop, whether that's 4, 8, 16, whatever the bars are. I work in the loop and then build things, subtract things, make other bits, and then think about transitions and stuff afterwards.
So before we delve into the tracks, for those of us who are new to Reason, can you just give us a brief overview of what the hell's going on with Reason?
Yeah.
And why?
Hey, Reason. Hey,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, you're mad. Hey, no.
Man should switch from live to Reason.
Reason's a glorious piece of software. As you can see from the title, I have very rarely do I give titles with any names. I just do that on the keyboard and whatever it is. So this is called, I can't even say it.
Say it, man.
Abasndis 23 plus Yelfris Mix 13 CDR. I was actually going to change the name when you said to send the file through. But I was like, nah, man, you are who you are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So number 23, this is probably like version 23 of this same song, Mix 13, the 13th mix. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's been huge changes. There's small things that I care about. But if you listen to it, you would never have any kind of idea for. And then CDR, because it's CDR. So what is happening in here? Oh, man, I need a mouse. I'm not even a Mac guy. All right, cool. So when I'm using Reason, I make things as I go, do whatever. And I try to have, I think a lot of the time I work where I have the ideas down and then I do the mixing and stuff afterwards. I try not to do the two together. But for this, where I had to go through it and big up Yelfris, I thought the song was done, and then I'd done a remix for Yelfris, and remix was sick. He was a really lovely guy, and he plays trumpet. And he asked me for the remix. I was like, yeah. And I thought, I could get trumpet on this. That could sound sick. So I emailed him, and he was really encouraging, really supportive. He listened to the song, loved it. He had a trumpet part, sick, loads of different layers, and then he wrote string parts and recorded them as well and sent them through, which is why it's called with Yelfris, because then I had to rework everything. But what's happening here, on the main stereo bus, two things that I tend to do is I have a stereo to mono flip. So when I'm listening and working on the mix of whatever, I'll try and put it in mono, which helps with the leveling, and that is always like a clearer picture of what's coming through and what's not coming through. And then I'll flip back to stereo and everything just sounds so much wider and it translates a lot better. So that just helps me in terms of clarity. And clarity is one of the things that I wanted to get across in this particular piece of music. Sometimes, don't care. Sometimes the fuzzier, the muddier, the better. But Yelfris had put so much time into recording his parts, I wanted to kind of really do it justice. And a few things that I've done since that, I've tried to work in the same way because I want it to have the richest sound it could have. You know what I mean? Not all music calls for that, but I feel like this did. So I'll have that. And then I've got a Magma Sonic classic filter. Really what this does is it helps me listen to the low end and the top end and just hear what clashes. So I'll work in the spare room in the flat that I live in with my wife. And I have always pretty much worked through headphones. So I have monitors and I use them sometimes, but for the most part, I'm a headphone person. So I tend to use this when I'm eventually trying to listen to a monitors a bit, just to kind of make sure that the end isn't too crazy, the top isn't too insane. But again, just for these specific things, it isn't rhyme or reason for everything. Other than that, the rest of it is just instruments, really. So if you go to the sequencer, very little audio, a lot of it is MIDI, just because it's easier for me to work that way. The audio bits you can see are all the stuff that Yelfris so kindly gifted, and it was just a case of arranging that, adding some automation in terms of any effects or in terms of volume as well, and bringing things in when the strings come in and kind of come out. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Sometimes you add like a million reverbs onto whatever just for the fun of it to see what you can make. But a lot of the time now, I tend to use less and less stuff. So just like that, like if the idea stands by itself, sometimes you don't need to overcook it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's have a listen.
trumpet bus. So there's two, same recording, chopped, panned differently, some from left, some from right, and then effects on the bus as well. So that's the filter, and you kind of hear the highs and the tops of that just to kind of get an idea of what works and what doesn't work. It just helps me. It's a bit fun as well for me to do. So that's just a silly synth bass, whatever. It's quite heavy, so I tend to kind of cut the real bottom end of it out and then try and compress it a little bit as well, just to kind of have some control over what it's doing. So drum bus, so this is what I'm saying, you're hating on Reason. Listen, Reason, yeah?
No one's hating on Reason.
Listen, you lot stay there. Reason, when you have the drum machines, they've got all the separate outs, so you can route them all out, so you've got much more control over the individual sounds. So you've got like kicks, whatever here, and I'll route them into a bus. Very little happens on the bus, just a little bit of compression to kind of glue it all together and tighten it up. But there's two sets of drums in the song, so the drums change in the second half. So you can hear the percussion, that's just kind of like played in, nothing fancy. So that's like a string synth pad, which is quite peaceful actually.
Got tension,
yeah. And these synths kind of like stay throughout really, and they're just like a nice bed underneath. Okay, so this is like the second part of the track. So all of that percussion is just kind of played in manually, kind of play what feels right rather than trying to stick it anywhere or use a drum machine for that.
So the MIDI instrument, but you just
yeah. It's meant to sound or feel natural, more, more natural, more human, which is what I try to do with a lot of the drums. So the drum changed again. This is handily called Drums 2. So these are more live, like acoustic drums, but it's all still going into the same bus. So just if I adjust the level of the first set, I can adjust the level of the second one as well. And that's just a loop of chords, and then there's a Rhodes in there somewhere. Okay, so that's actually audio, first bit of audio, big up audio. I think I've got like a Nord Electro, and I played it in and recorded it. And sometimes I just like will play over and chop bits that I want to keep, fade in bits of different bits, and do like other overdubs as well. But this was just one take. Okay, so those Yale Friss's strings. There was a whole section in the middle that I didn't use, but I wanted to use the ends. There's that stereo flipping mono as well, so that really helped with the strings and where to kind of place everything. string bus. Elvis is a G. So yeah, so you can see there's lots of strings there that I didn't use, and I took the last part of that as well to really ram home, and then you fade it out. The Rhodes kind of gets lost in the strings, but that's by design. It kind of comes down in the strings. That is like the point of focus.
Nice.
So that's it, man. So
it was worth the wait, wasn't it, I guess?
what do you mean?
In terms of, you started it a while ago, but...
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's like that, man. Sometimes you'll make something and you'll listen to it on Monday, you say, no, it's pants. Listen to it on Tuesday, it's pants. But then the following Wednesday, there might be something in it that you like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've got folders and folders, hard drives, just of ideas, loops, whatever. And then sometimes you go back to it and there's something in there that you think, once you've learned a bit more, you hear things differently, you can kind of think, yeah, there's something in that, and you can work with it.
Was there anything particularly challenging about putting this track together? And for one, and then how did the collaboration really? I mean, obviously you can hear what benefit it had, but for you, how did it change your view of this track once the parts were given to you?
Putting it together, not really, because I think it all just kind of, it was more like he had sent so much. I think someone said once, like, art or creating stuff is about, what you use is what you don't use. So it's thinking about which bits to keep, which bits not to keep. I think that was a bit tricky. And in terms of what it added, yeah, it just added depth, man. Like a lot of depth and a lot of richness. And he has a knowledge of music, how to write stuff, how to compose stuff that I don't have. So even with the trumpet line, the single trumpet line that I took, that's like glorious to me. I can't do that at home. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't do that. So to have that there, it's like, that is it. It was years, but that is it. I'm glad I didn't just throw it on Spotify for whoever to hear. I'm glad that it got to this point. So it made me realize things take time, to be a bit patient.
Cool. With patience, I'm going to see if these guys have got any questions. Anyone got a question they'd like to ask right about now? There is a microphone. Just stick your hand up and we shall. Cool. Hey. Yes, one question in front here. I've got microphone here. Yeah.
We say, bro. Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Very quickly, I just wanted to ask a question about energy and maintaining energy and interest throughout the track, especially when it's a track that, if similar tone as that way, it's quite solemn. It's quite yes, the drums and the percussion are doing their thing, but it's not like loads of crazy things popping out here and there. It's like it takes you on that journey. It's like, how do you maintain that energy and maintain that interest throughout the entire duration?
I don't think it's a thing that I like think about, if that makes sense. If I listen to it and it engages me, it interests me, then that's all I can do. I can't try and put something together in a way that I think 9 other people will feel away. You know what I mean? So again, listening to lots of other music and seeing how some people use silence and still parts of music, and I'm still engaged with it. It's like you can do it and people will engage with it. So yeah, it's not like an intentional thing. It's just if it works for me, then it's cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind
Yeah,
of.
it does. Yeah,
Same.
appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Cool. Anyone else? Cool. That's all right. There'll be time. Don't worry. We'll get you. It feels to me that if this track is a reflection of the rest of the album, which I feel it is, it feels like perhaps the mixing process was quite an organic process. Can you talk us through that? I mean, talk us about the fact that you use headphones. You talked about your kind of approach to this. You've had to be very patient with it, but it's definitely paid dividends. Talk us through what the mixing process was like after you'd, composed the tracks.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, this is version 23, mix 13. So
with minimal but significant
yeah,
changes.
yeah. And that could be, I'm sure I'm not alone in fact, please don't let me be alone in this. Like, I'll have something panned right, and I'll listen to it on the train to work or whatever. Like, no, you should have panned that left. Mix 2 is me panned to the left. No, it needs to go right, but just a little bit. Mix 3 is, you know what I mean? So it's subtle changes like that. And then sometimes you'll listen to something, or I'll listen to something and I'll be like, I like how they did that. Like how they managed to. So when this song leads into the next song, this song fades out and it bleeds to your right. And then the next song comes in through your left. So it's one, again, I listen in one continuous thing. So it's thinking about mixing the individual songs, and then when I've done that, it's how to sequence it, arrange it together. But the mixing is not really that crazy as long as it feels right, and I try not to do too much to some things. Again, because of what Yelfris had added, there needed to be some additional time, but sometimes I feel like you can just over-mix it, and because you've got infinite resources in your computer, you can go mad. I try not to do that. If it sounds, he says, I try not to do that. If it sounds and it feels good enough, sometimes that's enough. Like you can't be too perfect with it, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure, of course. But is there tracks that so with that said, is there tracks that you can maybe cross-reference just for you to feel that you're, in the right ballpark sonically? Yeah, so what kind of tracks are you?
What did I cross-reference? So I was listening to like a lot of rock and jazz albums from the 70s, and they do mad things on some records where all the drums are in the right, and then drums and bass are here, all the rhythm is here, and all the vocals are here. And you don't really hear that today. And I listen to nothing like, that's insane, but it works. You know what I mean? So just hearing those things, even if I don't directly use those techniques, knowing that there's no rules is always like a gentle reminder to just, it don't matter, man. Like, as long as it feels good to you. So yeah, it was just like trying things out and seeing what felt good and what did the most justice to the music.
Cool. So with that said, I mean, on one hand, you're writing music for you, right? And whatever comes out, whether it's whoever switch on the laptop, the MPC, but part of us has to have music in the world, right? And get people to like what we do. So how do you navigate that? How do you navigate the relationship between the music that you make and the fact that ultimately some of it's about finding an audience and finding, life for the music in public?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm just lucky. So when I started to, all I ever wanted to do was have my own record in a shop. That was it. Like, as a kid who grew up buying records, loved going to record stores, having something that I'd made on a shelf next to everybody else's is like, that's nirvana for me. Like, that's it. So when I got that done, that was all success was to me. It wasn't about trying to sell this and do whatever. So I think I've just kind of realized what matters to me. I enjoy making music. If it comes at the expense of, like, if I have to try and do something to really garnish and find the audience, but I'm not enjoying it, that doesn't make any sense to me, because it's my life, it's my time. I have to kind of it has to be satisfying to me. So I think I've been very fortunate in that I've had labels that I've worked with who have put stuff out, and they don't have to, nobody has to do that. That's a very considerate thing for people to do, you know what I mean? Invest their own time and own money. And then I got to a point where I was like, I think I've been to a few mastering sessions, I think I can try and put something out myself, And so I was like, cool, save some money, try and see if you can do something. And that's all I did. I just tried to put something out myself. I knew where to go to get some mastering done. I kind of had an idea of who I could send it to if they wanted to listen. Only thing I didn't know was artwork, but a friend of mine who had moved to Canada, she was setting up her own graphic design company, so maybe I could talk to her, and it was just like, let me try something. Did that, and it wasn't too painful, wasn't too costly, I was like, all right, cool, I'll try it again. And I've just gotten into a rhythm of being able to put out records myself. But yeah, it is a bit mad when you're trying to make something and then try and put it out to everyone. But I don't think music, or the music that I make, is for everyone. I don't think that's how it works. I try to make sure that the people who rate my stuff, so I have like a mailing list that I've kept for years and years and years, and I make sure that those people who have supported in some way, who have bought in some way, it's them. I've got to think about them. I've got to make sure that if I press something, there's enough at least for those people, and I let those people know in a way that makes the most sense to me, and I kind of let them know. And then anything else outside of that is cool, but it is hard, I think, to try and make something and then worry about how it's perceived by everybody else. Because when you were making it, I'm not necessarily thinking about that.
Sure. No, I hear that. And I guess Bandcamp's really great platform for connecting with audience and building your, I guess, connection, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember when Bandcamp started, and I was like, what on earth is this? Like, you can just put your music up and, like, isn't that mad? But the big thing about Bandcamp was that you got people's email addresses, so you could just give stuff away. People could download a remix that you couldn't really sell anyway, but you would collect someone's email address and you could build a mailing list of people that you could talk to. And that's just kind of something that's just stuck. And then so every time somebody comes, get email and just move. And then, yeah, Bandcamp's been super helpful. It means that if I want to put something out that is just digitally, I've got a home to do it. And I think having a home that you're kind of in control of, whether that's a label, a Bandcamp page, whatever it is, for me, I felt that that's important for me. It means I don't have to think about what I've made being acceptable by someone else's standards. I don't have to think if they like it or if they don't care what I'm doing anymore, like I'm stuck. It's just kind of giving me that freedom, I guess, that option.
Basically, it's cultivating your own tribe, right? Your own network.
You make it sound so grand, Tony. It's not that. But
well,
yeah,
it is. I think in these times it is. I think that, there's a lot of madness in the industry. There's lots of, as we know, there's an industry that tells us different things, that what we care about isn't important. Yeah. That how you look is more important than the music, right? So these things, don't take them lightly, man. That's the future, having your own tribe and people having your audience having your back.
Yeah, and again, like, I come from a time where there was a big difference. Like, I come from a time where there was music, whatever, and then there was underground stuff, and that doesn't necessarily exist as much today. So I come from that. Like, that's what I understand. I understand that, or I come from a place where the work, what you put out, matters more than other things. And I think all that stuff just kind of sunk in somewhere, and me being old and stubborn, that's just how I work. It might not be the best, most productive, most successful way of doing things, but it's something that works for me and allows me to kind of live a life as well.
Thank you. What do you guys think? Thoughts? What are you saying, Errol? Sorry, man. Had to do it. What are you thinking, guys? Keep going. Okay, we'll do. All right. When did you guys say, we're family, man? So, all right. Enough. Have a think. Thank you so much for this. I think that for me, the main thing I wanted to get across was this idea that you can continue, you can keep going, and this kind of combination of making music that's important to you, and having a connection with audience and just maintaining that. That's the thing, And if we can get this balance between obviously earning a living, hopefully through the music, but maybe through other means, but just keep pushing things forward, because I think, ultimately the things that have driven us to do what we do is people taking those risks and pushing things forward sonically, and those people are doing that because the music matters. So if we can maintain that, that's the thing that's...
How is the earning a living thing is tricky, right?
Yes, for sure.
I heard someone go, yeah, I feel it like, I don't know, man. Earning a living from music is, I don't know. Part of me feels it's a big ask in 2022. I don't know, it's hard, man. I remember, so I used to be a teacher for a long time, and I was on my teacher training course, and this was like when I had my computer and I was at home just making music, just loving it. And I remember my mum saying to me, like, music doesn't really owe you anything. You can be sick at music, make the greatest stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people will pay you to do it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, music has to be its own reward. And she said that, and I thought, you're killing me, man. But as I've gotten older, I get what she said, rightly or wrongly. I'm always someone that's worked. I've never done music full time. I've got a job, I get up, I go to work every day, I have to book off my holiday like everybody else. And I mean, so music is just while everyone, like my mates play FIFA and they go football and do whatever they're doing, that was never my thing, I just do music. So music has always just been its own thing. So maybe those decisions of not trying to make it my job, my career, my living, have afforded me time to think about things and to do things in a different way. But I definitely appreciate it's not something that everybody wants to do, and it's almost like that's a failing in a way, the way it's kind of put across by somebody. That if you're working and doing music, you should, like, you're not good enough, that you can't do it. But I think what am I trying to say? Someone said to me once, you've got to figure out what success is for you. So, and I think I spent a lot of time trying to think about what success looks like for me, what it is. So even if I DJ and I go abroad, there was a time where if you put a record out, the idea was you DJ'd, and then you put another record out, you DJ some more, and it was like, all right, cool. But then at some point, like, to what end? You know what I mean? Like, to what end are you doing that for? And I think it's happened to me. You very easily get caught in a way of doing things, but is it satisfying to you? Is it what you want to do? So, yeah, I think having a job has allowed me to not worry about what music does or doesn't make me. But I appreciate trying to earn a living from it. Like, I generally don't know how people do it. You know what I mean? It must require so much time, so much effort, and having to wear so many different hats in order to kind of get something done. So yeah, I think like that earn a living thing is like, it's important and it matters, but I think it's really difficult.
So to producers, navigating the world of the music industry, early career people, what advice would you give them?
Don't listen to me. I'm not in. I wouldn't consider myself as someone who's in the music industry. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like go to meetings. You know what I mean? I'm not an industry person. I think I just try to make music and enjoy what I make and enjoy listening to music. But any advice, just like same thing I said to you on the preamble, like, there's no rules. There's no one set way to do anything. Kind of figuring out what works for you through trial and error or talking to people. But yeah, there's just no rules, man, to none of this. There's no rules.
So with that said, what's next for you musically?
What's next? So much has come before. I don't know, man. What's next? I finished off a few remixes that I'm really proud of. Yeah, man, I don't know. No idea.
So that's okay. That's good to know. But at the same time, so do you, with an album coming out and some notoriety, obviously these things are in peaks and troughs, right? So with an album coming out and some visibility, that's going to obviously have some opportunities that come from that. And the opportunities will take up time. And you've obviously, like you said, you've got a day job, you've got day commitments. How do you navigate your time? And particularly when you're really busy. So, for example, if you suddenly get slammed with, enough remixes or enough offers, how do you navigate that?
That's changed over time. So when, 2022? So maybe like 2013, 14, when I did the record for Kyle, Wild Oats, big up Kyle. And then there was like DJ stuff and having a booking agent and whatever. I said to myself then, if you've got to miss a day of work, not get paid, but it allows you to do something else, do it. Because this is not going to be forever. You're not going to always get offers to go and play and do whatever in other countries. So I was kind of like, yep, I'm doing this. And I don't ever really tell anyone that I do music. I don't really say anything at work. Like, even this is mad. Even like friends, family, when I used to make music when I lived at home, they would come round, see more records, more CDs, more drum machines. So they have an idea that you're doing something, but I would never like, this is what I'm doing. It was always like a really personal thing. So I was like, right, if these opportunities come, you're just gonna go and take them. Now it's a bit different. Now it's like, what do I wanna do? If something comes up in terms of a remix, yes, it's time, but remixes are good. If someone's asked me to do something, if I've got the time to do it, more than likely I'll do it. It's just figuring out all the rest of it. DJing and stuff, again, same thing. If it's something that I really want to do, a place that I really want to play, I'm like, cool. It might mean I need to book a day off, or I've got to book a day off, and then just try and work around it. But initially, it was just like, no, man, these are things that you are lucky enough to do, and while you're young enough, able enough to do it, you should try and really go for them.
Did you ever feel pressured at all to kind of, you know, be industry at any one point?
I don't think. I'm trying to think. What do you mean?
So what I mean is, you know, it's like, I mean, you talked about this idea of, you know, one goal being on, you know, having a record on the shelves. That means a lot, right? Yeah. And you know, people suddenly being on your jock. You know, depending on how you deal with that, you can deal with it with wisdom, or you can deal with it where, you know, it can be something else. Yeah. But at some point, you're kind of, you know, you're dealing with so many different things, like the attention you're getting, or the, you know, spiking bookings or spiking offers. You know, then you have to deal with that on a personal level, not just in terms of time, but in terms of this new kind of layer of people and layer of interest. So that can obviously, depending on what kind of person you are, you have to navigate that. So.
Yeah, it's like we were saying earlier, innit? Most things in life are relational. So, yeah, things come and other people are around, but when things change, are people still around? So, everyone, it's like when you're doing work with people or whatever, you're the first person that they want to call, want to email. After the work's done, you might not hear from them. So it's going through certain things and realizing, oh, it's just like, whatever, cool, people move on. And that's not to discredit anyone or anyone's mean or whatever. It's just everyone has lives and things to do, and that's fine. But like I was saying before, it's what matters to me, what is success to me. So if I'm got to do a remix for someone, cool. It might be that I speak to them loads and loads and loads for 6 months, but once it's done, maybe I don't really hear from them. I might not check them, they might not check me. It's fine, it's not a problem. It's how it works. But pressure to like be inside or part of something, not really. But I think that's more to do with my temperament. I'm not everywhere. I'm not at loads of parties. I'm not online all the time. I'm very much, and like quite a shy to myself kind of person, he says on stage with a mic. But yeah, you know what I mean? So yeah, I was never really around in that way, and it just never really worked that way for me.
But you know, whatever you're doing now is working really well. Wouldn't you agree?
Thank you. Yeah, just like I said, see how things go, man. See how things go, one thing at a time.
Indeed. On that note, unless you guys have got a thing you want to ask, yeah? Question here. Hold on, wait for the mic.
The way you carried that was so fun. Yo, what's up? My question is just out of sheer curiosity. I know you like to read. When's the last time you read a book that shifted your perception of music making, and what was it?
Cheers, everyone. Only you know. There was a really good book that I read called Art and Fear. True story. Sometimes I don't make a lot of music. Sometimes I'm at home and I might like struggle to have an idea that I think is good, or I've been working all week and I get 1 hour to make something, like I was saying to you. And if you don't make the sickest thing you can make in that hour, it's like, what are you doing with your time? Not realizing that things take time. And so I sometimes think maybe it's gone. Maybe whatever luck, skill, talent, combination of all of the above is gone. Maybe this is just it. And so I'll worry that I'm not able to make music, enjoy music, and feel really disconnected from a lot of things. And so like you do when you've got access to way too much technology, you just Google, like, why do I not whatever. And someone had talked about a book called Art and Fear, and it was just about how it's quite normal for you to worry about what you're doing, how it's perceived, that it's gone. But a lot of, like most things in life, there's a discipline that can come from just doing something all the time. And if there's a discipline involved and you're constantly doing it, then a lot of that fear diminishes because you're in the habit of doing something. So loads of times I'll make stuff on the MPC and I'll make it sick, love it. Might send a voice note to my friend. I don't save nothing. I just turn it off, just to know that you can make something, you can do it again tomorrow. It's fine. So the book Art and Fear, it talks a lot about the fear that can come with art making, but also about where our fear comes from. Sometimes it's the fear from putting yourself out. It's quite a vulnerable thing to do, to say, my name's Steve, I made this album, what do you think? Sometimes the fear comes from what people closest to you might think. So that book really made me think about a lot of the times we are only judging, or we can only ever judge art, works, whatever, by the end result. I can only judge Stormzy by whatever album he gives me. I don't live with him, I don't know what he's gone through, but really his process of what he's made, what he's gone through, what he's applied to it is probably the thing that's going to matter most to him as a person. So it made me really think, okay, cool, like the end result is the end result, whatever, but what did you gain from the process? Did you learn any new skills? Did you listen to something that you wouldn't have listened to? You know what I mean? So that book there, Art and Fear. I've got it at my house. I'll drop it to you, it's fine.
Thank you for your question. Cool. One more question. Question in front here. Thank you.
Yes. Man like Kieran.
Yo.
I have the privilege of being on that mailing list, and one thing I've noticed is at the end, at the very footer, you tend to share YouTube clips or albums you've listened to or books you've read, and it's quite an important snapshot and to contextualize where you're at in that moment. Can you speak to that? Because you've spoken about being quite shy and reserved, but you actually do open up a bit of yourself in any one moment in time that a lot of other people don't have access to from other artists.
Yeah, safe, Nicky, man. So like, why do I do it? Why do I do that? Because it's just stuff that I find interesting. Maybe someone else will find interesting. Like I said, I'm not online on social media in ways that lots of people are, I guess. And I'm not overtly on there posting every day or whatever. I do better if I have a bit of time and consideration and space. So I'll say, like, this is the book that I've read because I like to read. It's just part of who I am. There's times when I'll read. And the stuff that I'll listen to, I'll be like, yeah, I find this interesting. Maybe someone else will find it interesting. Maybe someone won't. But like you said, it's just this is what I am today type of thing. And just kind of, put it out, I guess.
Thank you for your question. Cool. Oh, there's one more question.
This is not a question. I just want to tell everyone to sign up to a mailing list because it's so great. And no, it really is. And you know that every time you send those emails, I always get back and I was like, I really love this newsletter because I think it's something that, you know, I guess with Bandcamp, but like it's missing a lot, like the direct connection. And I just really appreciate that you see the importance in that. And I think it's very special. And thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that segues nicely to how can we get in contact with you, and what's the email address for the mailing list?
Yeah, there's not. So mad. K15music.co.uk. You can join the mailing list there, and then just usually mail out. Sometimes if there's music out, sometimes there's no music out, and it's just to like be like, how's everyone doing, whatever. But yeah, K15music.co.uk, and then Twitter, Instagram, whatever, K15music as well.
Kieran, thank you so much, man.
One more.
Oh, one more?
One more.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, not to try to like last word or whatever, but just one question. At any point, do you ever feel like you need to let go of an idea? Because if you go from mix 1 to 23, is there any time you revisit in 15, 16, 25, 35 that you're like, nah, this one has to go to the grave?
What, the mix has to go to the grave?
No, not the mix.
The song?
The song. Or the loop.
Nah, you know what it is? In those times, I've done too much. I've gone too far. The original thing was sick. I tried to put my big head in it and go too far. It's not that. So whenever it goes too far and everything might be, kind of like I was saying, not everything needs to be clean, polished, whatever. Sometimes the more rugged, the better. But sometimes, because you can tweak things a million times, I will just tweak things a million times. So if I'm listening and it doesn't feel the same, everything sounds a bit too nice, I'm like, nah. Very rarely is it like I don't like the initial idea. The initial idea, the feeling was great. It's maybe that I've put too much on. So then we're thankful for hard drives and backups, and we go to number 1, and we listen again and just call that. So yeah, going back sometimes helps.
On that note, thank you, Kieran. Big up.
Big up. Save Tony.